Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving straight on to our next panel, and we're looking at sustainable business practices leading the way to a green transition. So we're kind of going to talk about ESG, but we're also going to put a D in ESG and talk about democracy as well. So let me introduce our three panelists. We have Paul Romeo Barbur, Secretary of State at the Ministry of Environment, Waters and Forests for the Government of Romania. Welcome, sir. Please take a seat. Gemma Webb, Chief Executive and President of RetuRO SGR. Welcome, Gemma.
I'm afraid.
Welcome. And Marcus Buscaglia, founder, Alberdi Partners, author of Beyond the ESG Portfolio. So welcome all of you. I believe you're all going to make some introductory remarks and then we'll move on to a Q&A. So over to you. Let's go. Yes, would you like to use the podium? Yes, of course, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I shall start by thanking you for the invitation addressed to the Ministry of Environment, Waters and Forests to this edition of the Economist event next to representatives of the economical environment. We can say that this event has already become a tradition. This is the 5th annual edition, and we are honored to be part of these important dialogues in the private and institutional environment in order to be able to identify together good solutions for the economic challenges during this period of time. The ministry that I represent today is proud with a project well known to the Romanians, the System Guarantee Return, the biggest circular economy project in Romania. Through this project, more than 3.36 billion packagings were returned by the consumers up to the end of 2024. RetuRO, the administrator of this system, has turned to the recyclers 231,000 tons of packagings. With more than 302 million packing returned in February 2025, this system keeps the increased speed and adds to its portfolio excellent results regarding the quantities they send for recycling, and it advances towards local communities. That's why we add 108 new automated collection points established in February. This means that the national network continues to grow, supported by stores, local authorities, and operators. We have a moving horizontal industry, starting with transports to manufacturers who increased substantially their ability for recycling, who are getting ready now to extend. The AFM programs are also important for both citizens and for the economic environment. I would like to start talking about a program for tractors where we have two categories of vouchers, one of 35,000 euro and others of 44,000 euro for young farmers whom we support in their attempt to do sustainable agriculture. We have taken all measures to finance the renewal of the car park of agricultural cars to be according to the expectations of small farmers who want to produce more, cheaper and greener. The financing guidelines brings modifications that add transparency and safety to our program. The people who want to replace their used agricultural tools with newer ones can register by themselves through the app on our website and not with tractor dealers. The financial support is of 65%, or 80% from the procurement value of the tractor, whose cost should not exceed 55,000 euro. And the financing is granted when turning an old vehicle, because we also want to encourage the practice of fair gestures to the environment. We have other programs such as the classical one and another one for cars. This will be modified. The main modification is related to how people can register. This will not be done through a dealer, and the Romanians could access the app so they can generate their voucher, irrespective if we speak of conventional engines or electrical cars. Another modification that we have been talking about and that will start in 2025 is the elimination of diesel cars from this program. We also aim at doing this in 2 seasons during springtime and autumn time. The domestic consumers, we speak of the greenhouse also financed by this institution, and the budget in 2024 and that we'll have in 2025 is of 2 billion. In 2024, there were about 67,000 direct beneficiaries. The financing has increased from 20,000 lei to 30,000 lei for the procurement and assembling of photovoltaic panels and for installation for green energy storage from renewable resources. We want to launch a new program, the Greenhouse, this year that is dedicated exclusively to assembling batteries for those who are using such photovoltaic systems. This program will become operational next to the others. This new program will help the people who have assembled photovoltaic panels but who are not having the possibility to store energy back then. This program, the Greenhouse 2025, will become fairer for everybody. We need to take into consideration solutions for all the people, avoiding situations when the programs will end in just a few seconds. If we speak of sustainability and positive aspects, I want to say that the Ministry of Waters, Environment and Forests has green energy programs for farmers, and there is a call for proposals up to the end of September, where installations for energy production were financed from renewable sources, that is biogas based on waste, on manure. We will have solutions to produce such energy from renewable sources such as biogas. The maximum value that is eligible for one project is of 3.74 million euro, and the financing rate is 90% from the value of the eligible expenses of the project, from the VAT without VAT, and then the 10% is the contribution of the beneficiary. The financial allocation granted for the development of infrastructure for manure management and other agricultural waste is 20.7 million euro. In this project, there are already 7 projects that have been submitted so far.
Aici am mai putea să vorbim despre amenajarea hidroenergetică de la Răstolnița.
I also want to mention another project from Răstolnița regarding the safety of Romania in terms of energy. Such arrangements should be ended as soon as possible, of course, complying with all the procedures and European directives. This project brings benefits to Romania, such as contribution to the national energy safety, a source for green energy, and complex use of water resources. This project has started 30 years ago, and what we want is continue it. The Ministry of Energy should finish it by also accomplishing all the requirements regarding environmental protection. I conclude by thanking you for your attention and for the opportunity to introduce our successful projects in this important event for Romania that succeeded to bring together the business environment and the authorities fighting openly the challenges in the economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Gemma, over to you. Feel free to sit there.
Thank you very much. As CEO of RetuRO, the company that's responsible for the implementation and the management of the deposit return system here in Romania, it gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about the system and the impacts it has and how it's helping Romania to transition to a circular economy. It's one of the greatest initiatives in this field that's happening today in Romania, and it's having significant environmental, economic, and social impacts that we can see. The system is the largest fully integrated deposit return system globally, the one that's been implemented here in Romania, and it's highly complex. Its success as a result of a coming together and collaboration between retailers, producers, local authorities, and consumers to reduce waste and meet the EU recycling targets. In Europe, we're the second largest after Germany in terms of general deposit return schemes. And this year we're only been live more than a year. And in the first year of operating, we've achieved fantastic results. As already been said, we've collected more than 3 billion containers from the market and already sold to recyclers 230,000 tons of material. In the last 7 months alone, we've collected over 80% of the containers that went on the market. And 98% of those have been sold to recyclers, which is back into the system with full traceability to bottle or to other products that can be further recycled. So in the space of a year, Romania has done super well in this initiative and made a huge step change. In terms of environmentally, we see a huge reduction in the waste, and it's visible on the streets and in the countryside. It just doesn't exist anymore. And this is down to the consumers. Every segment of society is participating. We have 98% awareness of the system nationwide, and we have 70% of the consumers actively involved in the system, which is really fantastic. And the consumers are the star of the show. They're making this system work, which is absolutely brilliant. So it puts us well on track to meet the EU targets. People said recycling, it isn't in the culture of Romania. I think the Romanian people have shown how in the space of a year, they have brought themselves from a very low recycling rates now to being one of the top in Europe. And I think the system, when we'll see proof of the pudding is always in the eating, and I think we'll see throughout this year how the system in Romania can be a great case study and a great example for other countries to follow. In terms of the economic benefits, when we look what we now have, we have really good quality materials that are being provided to the recycling industry, so they don't have to import anymore. And because of the quality of those materials, the recycling rates are really high to be able to be used back for further products, which is fantastic. Also, it enables opportunities for the recycling industry now to look at expanding and putting in further infrastructure to ensure the full circular economy remains here in Romania, which is fantastic. Also, the other economic benefits in the system itself, we have over 800 people nationwide throughout Romania. That's 800 green jobs for local communities because we have 7 counting and sorting centres. So this is fantastic. And in addition to that, economically, and the economic impact is for the indirect employment and the other industries in transport industry, in the logistics industry, technology, in all of these areas, it's had a really good positive economic impact. And so the system today is working super well, and it's down to the critical success factors when you look at it is a really solid legislative framework, which was really good, the support of the producers and the financing of the producers, the beverage producers, and the cooperation of the retailers, the producers, the legislators, the authorities, and the Romanian consumer have come together under a shared vision and a pure determination with clear goals, and that's what's driven the success in such a very, very short space of time.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Over to you, Marcus Buscaglia.
Well, thank you very much, at Economist Impact, for this invitation. I'll show a presentation if possible. Let me start. I guess that if I ask to this audience in particular, if you care about the companies or governments that pollute the environment, you would say the answer would be yes, right? At least out of respect for the minister here, right? So people care about the environment, and they are taking actions. Investors are taking actions in their portfolios, through initiatives like ESG, green bonds. So there's a whole range of financial products and procedures by which investors can punish governments and companies that damage the environment and benefit projects and companies that benefit the environment. But if I ask a question to you now, whether you care about democracy, and my guess is that the answer would also be yes, that we all care about democracy, human rights, property rights, but the fact is we are not doing anything in our portfolios. Investors are not taking care about this in our portfolios, and this is what I would like to talk about. If you see, and this is also a problem. I mean, pollution and the global warming are real problems, and the decline of democracy standards is also a problem. If you see the chart on the right, unfortunately it doesn't incorporate the latest Economist Intelligence Unit report, but let me tell you, it goes down, right? So it's an average of the Economist Intelligence Unit, the democracy index. By now, according to the index, 96 out of 167 countries are hybrid democracy regimes or authoritarian regimes, and almost 55% of the world population lives in autocratic regimes. So this is a real problem, and it's a problem that is getting aggravated, particularly in emerging market countries. We have seen the democratic recession in Turkey and Russia, China going more autocratic, and this, as we have learned in a bad way, it has implications beyond these countries' borders, right? We have seen what happened to Ukraine. We have seen how China is increasing its clout in emerging markets. And the fact is that as this happened, investors were pouring even more money into emerging market countries, and which include a lot of autocratic countries. The chart as you see here are flows from IMF. You should concentrate on the red part on the chart on the left. Flows to emerging market countries went up as democracy was receding in emerging market countries. So the question is, why do we do this? And through my research, what I found out is that most of this investing takes place almost unwittingly. What happens is that pension funds around the world hire companies like, I know, Morgan Stanley Investment Management, JP Morgan Investment Management, several companies that are experts on emerging market countries, and these companies track indices. And these indices have a lot of countries. For instance, look at this. This is the most well-tracked sovereign emerging markets government bond index, the JP Morgan's MB. It includes 30 countries that are hybrid regimes or authoritarian regimes according to the EU. So 30 out of 67 countries, including the index, have somewhat authoritarian. So that means that if you're an investor that are tracking one of those indices, because that's what the benchmark by which your investors, the pension funds, the owners of the money, will value you, well, you end up investing in these authoritarian regimes. Look, the impact that the inclusion of China in this index, the World Government Bond Index, this is the most widely tracked government bond index in the bond market, in the government bond market. This is the biggest one. In 2021, China was included in the index. That meant that, again, as China was increasing its clout, spreading its authoritarian model throughout the emerging market world, and particularly in the most underdeveloped parts of the world in Africa, investors are pouring $120 billion into Chinese government bonds, right? The same happens in the equity world, by the way. And as it happens, ESG, that again corrects, allows investors to punish companies that attack the environment or attack diversity in the boards, that undermine different values that investors have. ESG doesn't take into account democracy. For instance, see what happened. By the time Russia invaded Ukraine, the ESG corrected MB index, I show you the JP Morgan MB index, there is an ESG version of that. The ESG version Russia in that index had a bigger share than in the non-ESG corrected. So if you were an investor caring for the environment, right, and so you track the ESG corrected version of the JP Morgan index, you would have had more bonds of Russia compared to the non-ESG corrected. So what I'm calling is basically to bring awareness that democracy is in recession. That is an important value as well, in as much as the environment and global warming are important, considerations, and that things should be done, not only for their own good, because they're good, because at the end of the day, they're more profitable as well. Countries that are more democratic grow faster. In this research by Nobel Prize winners, Acemoglu and Robinson, among others, show that countries that get democratic grow 20% over countries that are non-democratic, right? And this includes official GDP figures, and it is a well-known fact now that autocracies overstate GDP growth. And it's also more profitable. Look at this research. This is investing in companies in democratic countries ends up being more profitable. Why is that? Because in democracies, not only human rights are protected, but also property rights are protected. So it's very, so these guys basically construct a portfolio and they invest in more democratic countries, the dark blue line and the dark line, and then in less democratic countries, you see that the returns are substantially higher in more democratic countries. So my idea is stop investing in highly autocratic countries at least, but my first objective is to raise awareness. I mean, I think there's no awareness that we, probably through our pension funds in the Western world, through our, in the case of the US and other countries and university endowments, we are supporting autocracies and we may not even know about it. So with that, we can take action to correct that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. We're 15 minutes over time, so it doesn't give us much time for the discussion. I just wanted to give the opportunity to anybody from the floor if they had a question for any of the speakers. If not, I have some. But do raise your hand. And yes, have we got a microphone here, please? Yeah, no, we'd take the microphone.
If you may introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks. Yes, hello? Hello, hello. Hello? Is that Anna? Oh, hello. All right. Oh, is it? Oh, it's working. Okay. My name is Matthew Bryza. I'll be on the energy panel. I'm a former U.S. diplomat. I live in Istanbul, consultant, board member of some energy companies. Just a very technical question. Is not democracy part of governance in ESG? And so isn't it somehow taken into account in the criteria?
Yeah, very good question. I don't know if my microphone is working.
Yes.
Yes, now it's working. So a very good question. Well, some bond investors take the governance index of the World Bank into consideration, which has some, includes some features that democracy index, like the Economist Intelligence Unit, include, but the correlation is very low because they are tracking different aspects. For instance, I'm from Argentina originally. China scores much higher in the World Governance Index compared to Argentina. And with all our faults, Argentina, believe me, it is a democracy. It's not a perfect democracy, but it's a democracy. So they're tracking some of the governance issues that also good democratic countries have, but not all of them. If there are violations of human rights, the World Governance Indicator will not catch that.
Yeah, and just if I can add, because I'm the editor of this annual democracy index, our index is a thick measure. It has 60 indicators, and it looks at 60 indicators across 5 categories. So the obvious ones are electoral process and pluralism and civil liberties, but we also look at functioning of government. So governance issues in a much broader sense as one of the biggest categories in the index, actually. So I think the World Bank one is a much narrower focus, and we also look at political participation and political culture. I think that's why you end up with this kind of bizarre thing with China, which, has never been a democracy, has never had any, a popular component of democracy, but it seemed to be, quite efficient and in terms of its administration and so on. But it's, on the other hand, there's many negatives that aren't really captured in that index. So anyway, I have another question for you, but let me turn first of all to the Secretary of State. And yeah, it's come up a few times today. You did talk quite a lot about the various projects, about the financing, funding from the from the budget of these various projects. But I just wanted to ask you particularly about the RRF funds. As we know that the particular emphasis of the Commission and the RRF funds is meant to be on the green transition as well as tech and digitization and so on. So, to what extent is Romania really, utilizing those funds to, in this particular area in terms of the environment, green transition, circular economy and so on? Can you tell us a bit more about the take-up of the funds, and are they lagging? Are you going to actually absorb what's available by the end of the program in 2026?
Thank you for your question. I can say that Romania, when it comes to the absorption of the RRF funds representing green investments, has a very good situation when it comes to the Ministry of Environment. And all the funds that have been allocated for green investments will be absorbed 100%.
Gemma, just a couple of things for you. You did refer several times to the Romania aim of meeting the EU recycling target, starting from a very low base. Have you actually got the numbers there for us? It'd be good to know.
So the general recycling in Romania is traditionally around 13%. 13, and for beverage containers, it's been registered as 40%. So we've taken it from this level to now over 80%. And full traceability for it to be recycled back into products which will be reused again.
Okay. So, and just how a lot's happened in the space of a year, but how do you see the development more broadly of the recycling industry in the country? Because it has the potential to be a much bigger industry than it is now, and create a lot of jobs and attract investment and so on. So, how do you see that on the basis of your experience?
I think the experience now that Romania has of the implementation of this initiative gives huge confidence of what can be done in a very short space of time, and also shows what are the critical success factors to make sure something is a success. The deposit return system is the most successful private-public partnership in Romania over the last 30 years. And because of that, and people can see it's working, it gives huge confidence to actually look at other sectors and what can be done in other sectors. So this is one of the keys to success in recycling in the other sectors as well. People will actually make a step forward to get things done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And Marcus, you said that your main aim, you wrote your book, which I don't know if you have a copy of it. I recommend it. It's a very interesting book, Putting the D in ESG. The goal is to raise awareness. To what extent do you think that is happening? I know there, especially in the States, there are funds that are actually trying to incorporate this now into their portfolios and weightings of their portfolios. So, but why, ultimately you say it's not just in principle that you think investors should be doing this, but it actually pays off as well. But surely if that really was the case, we would have seen that happening, because at the end of the day, investors are looking at the bottom line. So, do you think this can take off really?
Well, it is taking off very slowly. To start with, ESG is under a lot of criticism and not particularly in vogue in the US as of now. So I think it will take place very slowly, because the main institutions that may bring the biggest change, that are the index providers, for instance, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. Remember that build these indices that all the investors track. Well, these companies at the same time are, working, underwriting bonds of these autocracies, having offices, so they don't have an incentive. At the end of the day, the incentive will have to come from investors, and this will take a long time, I think. But this said, there are, if we compare like 3 years ago, probably there was not a single product by which investors could try to avoid investing in autocracies. Now, you have several ETFs. ETFs are investment funds that anyone can buy with your, with a person can buy. No, are not for institutional investors, but are, like trade like stocks. You can buy them and sell them instantly like a stock. Are very popular now and the biggest investment vehicle now in the world. And there are several ETFs being created in the last 3 years. And also increasingly products for institutional investors as well that, again, in the equity world, they exclude companies that are in autocratic countries, and some of them also reduce the importance in the portfolio of companies in the developed world but are highly exposed to autocracies. So it is taking place very slowly, but it is happening. It is happening.
Okay, thanks. Final question for you, Gemma. What can other countries learn from what you've done, from what your company's done here in Romania, do you think? What are the main lessons?
I think the first thing is having a very solid legislation, very straightforward legislation, And the second thing is informing the consumers and making it easy for the people, accessible for them to recycle. But first of all, informing. So that's a critical element, and making it easy for them to recycle so that there's a recycling point, a return point very close to where they live and where they shop. These are the two key things. And the third one then is the cooperation among producers, among retailers, government authorities to actually bring the system to life. And having that shared vision and goal that everybody works towards is one of the other key elements of success. So they're really the 3-4 key things that that would be important for other countries to understand. And also, if you look at the ERP systems and the different systems globally, and you look at the limitations, these are some of the limitations that keep coming up in research. And Romania has just hit the sweet spot and made sure they were specific on every single one of those key criteria.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. But thank you, all of you, very much indeed. And please join me in thanking all our speakers.
Thank you so much. Thank you.